Good afternoon and welcome to another exciting episode of Artifacts with Edie. My name is Edie Steiner. We've had some technical difficulties this morning getting live to you, so thank you for being patient with us. We are finally live in the carriage house at the Summit County Historical Society. So if you're joining us for the first time, Artifacts with Edie is a live show and tell of the artifacts from the Summit County Historical Society's collection. And my name is Edie Steiner, and I'm a music therapist with Akron Public Schools at Bridges Learning Center, and I'm also the shepherdess here at the Summit County Historical Society. Once again, I'm broadcasting to you live from the carriage house, and anything could happen as it did this morning. So here we are, but remember, on Fridays, we have a weekly game show, Are You Smarter Than a Border Collie, at 11:30. Each episode this week is your study guide, so make sure that you catch up with the episodes as they come along. Can you take home the title of Smarter Than a Border Collie? In our last episode, we discussed what we as Americans did on the home front to help with World War II. People just like you and me who aren't in the military were asked to help in the war effort. One thing is that most people could do during that time very easily was plant a victory garden. Have you decided what you will plant in your garden this year? After learning about World War II, maybe you'll call yours a victory garden. If yes, drop us some comments in our Facebook comments so we can check back with you closer to June and see how your seeds are sprouting. My husband and I, we're actually going to try container gardening this year, and we're hoping to plant some sweet potatoes. And the dogs love them, and so do we. During World War II, which was 1941 to 1945, many things here in the United States changed. As men joined the military to fight and went to war, many jobs were left unfilled due to the lack of male workers available to do those jobs. So all at once, women were called upon to fill these jobs. As you can see in this copy of an Akron Beacon Journal article that appeared in the newspaper in 1942. It says that there are 1,000 job openings for women immediately to do war-related work. Prior to the war, the traditional roles would have been that women were told to stay home and take care of their families, and we also talked in episodes when we were at the Old Stone Schoolhouse about how women took on the role as the educator as well. So women stayed at home, and they may not have done the jobs that they were doing during the war times because they simply were told that they weren't suited for the job. So traditional roles at that time were that men were the breadwinners, where men worked a job away from home and brought back the money to the family. And then, of course, women during that time were thought to only need to stay at home and to be cooking dinner and cleaning the house, with no thought to family equality. Men during this time felt that a woman's place was in the home. And because of the war, it changed the availability of men in the workforce, and the jobs had to be filled by someone, and women were used to fill these positions. So during that time, 6 million women joined the wartime workforce. So truck drivers, mail delivery personnel, journalists, farmers, crane operators, factory jobs, bus drivers, garbage collectors, mechanics, carpenters, and many other traditionally male-only jobs were now available for women. So off to work we went. Uniforms, overalls, and slacks replaced dresses. Our hair was pinned up and pulled back in a ponytail and covered with a scarf to keep from getting caught in machinery. Open-toed shoes and high-heel shoes were replaced for work shoes and even boots. And during this time, there was even a shortage of nylon for hose. As you can see in this image of a long line on State Street at the O'Neill's department store here in Summit County. The government said that companies had to pay female workers the same as male workers were paid. However, many companies paid women a much lower wage. But the women showed that they could do these jobs, they could do them well, and sometimes even better than their male counterparts. Unfortunately, this pay disparity continues with women being paid only 82% as their male as much as their male counterparts in 2019. So this is still going on today. Look at this illustration. It's by Norman Rockwell and may even look familiar to you. It's of a woman with a riveting gun, a job that would have typically and historically been done by a man. Her name is Rosie the Riveter. She's a fictitious person which represented thousands of women who filled vital war jobs. Her real name, though, may have been Mary or Betty or Sue or Edie, but whatever her name was, she made sure that the job got done and the job got done right. A rivet is actually a fastener, and it holds two pieces of metal or aluminum or even denim together. Rivets were used in buildings and airplanes and tanks and ships and many other types of equipment for the war. A riveter was a person who installed these types of fasteners. Here's another photograph from Akron. These women worked at B.F. Goodrich Rubber Company. Every ship and every airplane needed rafts in case they were shot down or sunk. So pilots and sailors would have something to keep them out of the ocean while they waited to be rescued. Rubber was an important material that was used in World War II, but we'll talk about that more later. So these women and many other like them helped to save the lives of thousands of military personnel by making sure that every life raft was ready for use if needed. In this picture, you see a group of women sewing together. They're actually making life vests in a factory. These life vests were also made for soldiers on boats and planes. During the war, every plane that flew had a parachute for each person as well. So these women were working in the rubber factories would have also sewn these items as part of their job. Imagine how many parachutes had to be made. There were over 296,423 planes that were built during World War II, and they couldn't wait to be made because the military needed them right now. Women also made Corsairs airplanes in Akron, and I knew I was going to mispronounce that, and I tried very hard. Sewing was a very important part of their job because it helped to keep aviators or soldiers who flew airplanes very safe. They had a durable parachute to use if their airplane crashed or was shot down. Sewing was a skill that women had learned at home, or they maybe even learned it in school. And this was one of the first times that it was put to use in a way that many people hadn't thought of before. One of our society volunteers said that she learned to sew at Firestone High School, and she's currently using that skill to help make clothes during the quarantine. Do you know how to sew? If so, how did you learn? Tell us in the comments because we love your stories. Back to ours, by the way. By 1943, nearly a third of the workforce was made up of women. Women could do these jobs, and employers found a new, hardworking, reliable workforce that could replace the men who were away fighting the war. This opened the door to many new job opportunities for women, even after World War II. The war not only required lots of soldiers, but also large amounts of food and equipment and gasoline and many other items. So the government asked the American people to help, and these are some of the ways that Americans helped. They helped through scrap drives. And we talked a little bit about these in yesterday's episode, where people worked together to collect rubber and metal and paper. And then these items were recycled or reused to help in the war effort. They also collected old automobiles and tractors and bicycles and license plates, and anything that was made of metal that was not being used could be collected as part of the effort. Can you think of anything I left off the list? I'm sure there's many items that are made of metal that we could put onto our list. So drop those in the comments or let your teacher know. What are your ideas? Automobile tires were also rationed during this time to save the rubber for the military vehicles. They also needed rubber for their gas masks, and we talked about the life rafts, as well as other parts of airplanes. the scrap drives we talked about also help to supply this much needed rubber. So it's time to review and find out what our artifact of the day is. So question 1, people often say that a picture tells the story of 1,000 words. This is an extended response question that's more suited for our older scholars, but younger scholars, you too can also participate. Just tell your answer to an adult. Talking about how you feel about the things that have happened in our history are an important part of growing your mind and growing your heart. I am very excited though to hear all of your answers. So here's the question. In what ways do you see how World War II affected the lives of men, women, and children? Keep in mind when you write your answer that in 1939, when France and Britain went to war with Germany, Americans were divided over whether or not to join the war effort. Does that sound a little bit familiar to you? After the attack on our military base in Pearl Harbor in 1941, American troops were sent to the front lines. And this is when a lot of artists started to create posters like the ones that we saw today to support our troops. Question 2, U.S. workers made a large amount of the materials that soldiers needed to stay safe during the war. They made parachutes and life jackets and even tanks. So who played a vital role in building these things on the home front? Was it A, children, B, men, or C, women? If you answered C, women, then there's no short of historical knowledge at your house. During World War II, more than 6 million women joined the United States workforce. Last question. What is one way that people helped on the home front during World War II that you would be willing to do if you were asked? And then the second part of that question, what made you choose that answer? Remember, we're asking for your opinion. So as long as you support your answer with facts, your answer would be correct. All right, scholars, it's time to find out what our artifact of the day is. Today's artifact is something that many people received each week during World War II, and it contained different colored stamps. Take a guess. If you said a rationing book, then you must have a library card because you've been checking out all the historical facts. In episode 16, we talked about how limits were set on sugar and butter and coffee and meat for a family each month. I'm going to show you some close-up pictures of this booklet. So rationing coupons or stamps were issued weekly to families and individuals. They came in a small booklet like this called a rationing book. This rationing book contained blue stamps that were used for canned goods and frozen items, and red stamps that were used for meats and canned fish and butter and cheese and canned milk. So you gave a grocer one of these stamps every time you went to purchase the item on the list, and then children even practiced using these stamps at school so they could be better shoppers, as you can see in this picture from Fairfax County, Virginia, and the National Archives. When the stamps were gone, you could not buy any more of these stamps until you received some more from the government. So you can see why rationing books were very, very important and why they needed to be protected. What I love about this artifact is that it has its own little carrying case, and it's made of a really soft leather, and it has a little tiny buckle on it, and it's small enough that it can fit into a pocket or into a bag. So the quality of this item shows exactly how important these booklets were for family, because it meant the difference between receiving goods and not receiving goods. So all Americans worked together to support the troops during World War II with a motto on the home front of do with less so they'll have more. This forced Americans to be more empathetic by trying out a job that they hadn't considered working before the war, joining together for a cause, or above all, thinking about what their sacrifices meant to the troops in Europe. Right now, we're fighting our own fight for health and safety for all Americans against the COVID-19 global pandemic. In my conversations with some of you, I know that you too have been asked to do the same with less. So please remember to check in with yourself and ask, how am I feeling today? Am I feeling lonely, sort of lonely, very lonely? And then be kind to yourself, because it's okay to feel overwhelmed, and it's okay to not get anything done, and it's okay to just be okay during these difficult times. So it's during times like this, though, that we as Americans, we really have to take care of each other and be as strong as the sandstone of the Ohio and Erie Canal and the Perkinstone Mansion, because your story is part of our history. So keep telling us what you think, because you are our greatest asset. So I will see you tomorrow at 11:30 for another episode of Artifacts with Edie, where I show and tell the artifacts from the Summit County Historical Society, where history is always within reach. Thank you for joining us.